Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. Oh, to go back to Sunday, to experience it all again, those memories, things that will live long for many a year. Liverpool, number 20, champions, the Premier League, all the things that go into the mix. And it's not just that, isn't it? Even with 4 games of the season left to go, thoughts are starting to turn to the summer and what may be coming up, especially when all the big wigs are in town. Here to join me as ever, when you've won awards, you need an award-winning journalist, don't you? So the renowned and the respected Mr. Lewis Steele. Lewis, how are we, sir?
I'm very well, Dave. I'm very well indeed. I don't know if it's this MacBook camera doing me dirty, but the bag's under my eyes. I must not have slept much since Sunday. It's just been non-stop the last week. In terms of work, writing articles, I feel like I've written a book worth of words in the last week. But Sunday was mental. My ears were still ringing yesterday morning. And when I put my clothes in the wash, they stunk of pyro. But it was a great day, wasn't it? It was fun.
It was fun. It was absolutely crazy. And it's funny you mentioned pyro because I was in just next to the coach as it came past. I'm pretty sure I've got pyro poisoning as well, if that is even a thing. But it does seem to have been the theme for many there. But I mean, we'll start there, Lewis. Got to take you back to Sunday. I mean, this is footage that you filmed. So if you are watching on YouTube, let's just play a small segment of this for the coach coming in on that Sunday. We talking to the we never gonna stop. I mean, we could play this for hours and hours, and we'll all be watching this content again and again. But I suppose for you as a journalist, Lewis, you get there a good few hours early, like most, but it was just different outside Anfield, wasn't it? Anfield was absolutely atmosphere early doors. It was electric, wasn't it?
It was mental. I've never seen it like that before. And obviously I've been to every game this season at home and away, to be fair. But it's just from the second you walked up to the gates or the second you got within a mile of the ground, it was just absolutely mental. There was red shirts. I mean, even going back to, I got the train to Lime Street, and even that was just absolutely, it was just full of people just having a good time. You could see smiles on faces. The sunny day made it even better. I thought people were just enjoying themselves with the friends, the families, or whoever they were with. Even if they were on their own, they were having a great time. And then I had to walk the perimeter of the ground to get my accreditation and then back around again. I was with a couple of the other journos. Our good mate David Lynch was one of them. And yeah, it was just like people were just high-fiving each other. It was like the title had already been won, and in many ways it already had, to be fair, but not official. But it felt like, there was 60,000 people in the ground, but it felt like there was double that amount of people at Anfield, really. It was so busy. And that video, I was very proud of that video. I didn't really have to do much, just held the camera up, but the vantage point I got was brilliant for it. It just showed just how many people there was. But if anything, the video doesn't actually do justice to quite how loud it was. It was honestly, it was deafening when that bus arrived, and even when it was round the corner, you could see the red smoke in the distance, the pyros. It was just, I think that was my highlight of the day before the match. Really, I would say just seeing the smiles on everyone's faces, seeing just what football can do to all these people that they don't know each other. I mean, they're just random people, really, but they all come together. It's just brilliant to see.
Yeah, it was just special. And the scenes at full time, everyone will remember the songs, the let off and all that. And almost fast forwarding you to the end of the day, because I know you get out of Anfield late once you've done the reports, the copying, etc., everything like that. Even late on at Anfield as you left, the place was still buzzing, wasn't it? Well into the night.
It was honestly, it was mental. In a positive way, it was almost quite scary walking through because there was just so many people you couldn't move. People were throwing pyros. There was fireworks going off, bang, bang, bang. And it was honestly, it was a bit like a post-apocalyptic scene. Honestly, it was weird. People, there's a bus stop round the corner. There was a bloke stood on that with a pyro in one hand, a can of lager in his other hand. I think he just summed it all up. Everyone was just having a great time. The songs were going, and I think it's worth saying everyone was being well behaved as well. Really,
Yeah.
like, trouble could have I think there was a lot of police on the ground, and they were probably fearing there was going to be some trouble. But as far as I'm aware, nothing happened
No.
in terms of there was no, obviously there was no fighting or whatever. But it was just everyone was just hugging each other, whether they knew each other or whether they were random, as people were hugging each other, high-fiving each other. But that was just the post-match scene was just crazy because as I say, you just couldn't walk through. It was like it was like everyone was packed in like sardines. It reminded me of, like, when you're on a busy train carriage and you just
Yeah.
sort of stood like that. It was it was brilliant. It was a day that I'm not going to be forgetting in a hurry.
Yeah, just so many memories from it. And I know you mentioned that you loved the coming in, and I also loved that you were this close to having John W. Henry being interviewed in the mixed area as well. Was that the highlight of the day? Was there any other little special funny ones that stand out at all?
There was quite a lot of funny things really in the mix zone after the game. So John W. Emery sort of walked towards me. You can see in the video, and I was like, "Hang on a minute, he's stopping here. What on earth do I ask him? I've not prepped any questions." And we just said to him, "Congrats, John. Do you fancy a chat?" And he just said, "No, sorry." Carried on walking. But there's loads of all the players' families and friends were mulling around there. Arne Slott's brother, who by the way is literally just Arne Slot in different clothes. He's it's like I I think he's slightly older or younger. I'm not sure, but they look like twins, honestly. And they were all there with the beers. All the other players' families were knocking about. Virgil was walking through with his kids.
Wow.
Konate was stood in the stand on his own after all the fans had gone at this point. He was with his brother, or he was with two lads. I think one of them's his brother. Maybe they're both his brother. I'm not sure. And like, just all the players were there. They just looked like they were just over the moon, and rightly so. I mean, they've been fighting for this for a long time, and they finally got over the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Just there's so many things, and footage is just going to come out, and still little stories creeping through from Sunday. Just a special day all round. And I know you've been writing about Sunday, you've been writing about this Liverpool team at length this season. So there is a few articles I kind of wanted to ask you further about. This
Mm,
one was a great one, the Arne Slot, the full inside story on how Liverpool won the Premier League. And even just in the headlines, all-nighters, going back to school, his meticulous nature. What would you
yeah.
say for that? I mean, it's a brilliant piece. I've read that. What are your sort of key highlights or your key call-outs from that one?
Well, this story was, this piece was, it took me quite a while in terms of cobbling the stuff together because there's loads of
Yeah,
different things. I was like, I didn't know where to start. Do I start, now, like in the season? Do I go back to pre-season? Do I go back to when he was first appointed? I just tried to, just go into some of the details of stories, um, even things that I've already written that I just thought were worth reminding people about. But I thought, I ended up starting with pre-season and that training session that a couple of us watched in
yeah,
Philadelphia, because I just thought that really set the tone for what Slot wanted to be. He was there in his shorts, a whistle round his neck. He looked like a PE teacher, and I remember thinking then, like, this guy's a lot more hands-on than Jurgen Klopp was, and
yeah,
B, than I expected him to be. And it was clear that his messages were coming across because the players were all buying into it. We were speaking to the players in the States, and they were all saying how much they loved it. They didn't have to say that. They weren't just saying
right?
it to please him. I think they were being truthful. They all seemed to buy into it straight away. I think one of the main things to say is, after replacing Klopp, it, if you think back to when Fergie left United and Moisey came in, it was almost a bit like, right, Moyes, you have to prove yourself to us now, because there was a lot
Yeah,
of egos in that dressing room. But what the difference here was, Liverpool have left their egos at the door, and it was more, right, we need to prove ourselves to Slot. So And then there was just little anecdotes along the way of, how he's managed to, how he goes about his business. He lives on his own, so he's constantly thinking about football. He's up all night watching clips of, opposition teams. You might find, you might find a way to break down a team that other managers might not see. And there was a quote from one of one of the agents of one of the players who was basically saying, everything that Arne predicted in the pre-match briefing we saw in the game, and the players have, even ones like Virgil van Dijk, they've learned things from him. A lot of them have been describing it as like going back to school, as it says in the headline there, because they thought that they knew everything about football, but then Slot's come in and changed their perspective on things. So I think that was a nice one to write. It did take a while, but it was good fun to pull together, really.
It is a good article. It is dissertation length, though, people be warned, for when you do settle down. So make sure you've got a good half an hour or so to spare. And there's some great bits, as you say, in the piece. And it almost reminded us when we get that first footage in pre-season. And Arne Slot's even moving the players. If their body is like 5 degrees out of angle, he'll be shifting them and moving them. I mean, there's a couple of ones I like, so I'm not going to say, but in that article, which is a well worth the read, ladies and gents, and as I say, take some time for that one. Is there any little story or think that there's a bit that just sums up Arne Slot on what he's been this season?
Yeah, it's a good question. There are a few in there, like just in terms of, I think there was one like, I mean, obviously everyone knows this story already, but at Ipswich in the first game, he wasn't happy with Kwanzaa, so he substituted him off. And I think it didn't matter that was Kwanzaa; it could have been anyone. I think that was basically Slot just sending a message to the team: "Listen, lads, I'm the boss here. I'm not some pushover who's just come in to steady the ship after Klopp. I'm here to make you better." And what he said to the players was, in his first briefing, he basically said to them, in the Klopp era, and it wasn't a dig at Klopp, he was basically saying the mentality had been that Liverpool were the underdogs. Man City had more money. They probably had, a deeper squad in terms of the depth.
Yeah.
Pep Guardiola, all that. They've got these legendary players, De Bruyne or whatever. What an achievement it was to go toe-to-toe with them. That was the mentality. Slot came in and basically said to them, like, forget that. We can be the champions. We can be better than City, and this is how. And he didn't want to change too much. He wanted to just make some little tweaks to the tactics and the way of working. He made his approach became more analytical than Klopp's, in terms of, in the Klopp era, they'd normally have a meeting the day before a game, whereas now, or especially in the first few months, it was every day they'd go in, they'd have meetings with team meetings, they'd have one-on-ones with Slot and Heitinger and Hulshoff and the other coaches. And it wouldn't just be like, oh, you did this wrong in the match. It would be like, in training, you need to move your body shape a bit to try and, receive possession in a different way. It was just so, the detail that they've been into this season is led Liverpool to just have them little improvements on the pitch. And I know City have fallen off a cliff, and I know Arsenal have probably been very poor in the second half of the season, but Liverpool have won the title because of these tweaks that they've made, not the collapses their rivals have had. And I think that's all testament to Slot and his backroom team for just their relentless drive in training and on match day.
Yeah, it is crazy when you read it about the attention to detail. But yeah, definitely well worth the read, that one, ladies and gents. This one was interesting. I never thought I'd be telling a journalist I agreed with 90%, but disagreed with a few of their ratings, Lewis. But I always like a good player season rating. So, yeah, as the line says, they were all good, really, weren't they? So, for those that haven't read this one, again, interesting. I like some of the rationale behind it. Who were your top sort of, I know I'm asking you top of your head, but the three that you thought had the best seasons and got the highest marks there?
Well, I basically set out and I was like, it's really hard to rank players over the course of a season because they all do have ups and downs. And I thought I could easily give out a few tens here, but basically I try not to give a 10 because I always think that means they can't get any better. And, so I thought, right, I'm going to cap it at 9.5s. So I give Salah and Van Dijk a 9.5. And then I just thought there wasn't anyone that deserved a negative mark, really. I think, Alisson has bailed them out on lots of times. He's kept them in games, or, when they've been 1-0 up, he's made a big save, or when it's been 0-0, he's made a save that could have, if it had went in, would have changed the game completely. Gravenberch has been absolutely outstanding. McAllister, the same. Konate. And then there's players just below. I think then the ones that I've just mentioned are the sort of top category. And then there's the ones just below who have been a little bit like Szoboszlai, who's been excellent at times and then a bit quiet for a few weeks. The same with Diaz, Gakpo, these sorts of players. And then Robertson, I do think he has been below par for what he's set over the last decade, or, however many years it is, 8 or 9. But I still thought he deserved a positive mark because he's not been as bad as people said. So I think he got about a 7.5. And then the one that people will disagree with was Núñez. Got, I think I give him a 7. And I think a lot of people would have said, that should be more like a 5. But I just thought back to, if you take it over the course of the whole season, yes, he's been quite bad. But without his goals at Brentford, there's been some other big goals that he scored. Can't remember which games they were off the top of my head, but especially that Brentford one, because I think that was the day that I started to truly think, this lot, these are champions in the making, because they're grinding out results when they've not been good. And I think if those goals hadn't gone in, then maybe they would have drawn, and they go into the next game thinking, what's going to happen here? But it gives them the belief to kick on in the season. So I think Núñez, yes, it's been quite a bad season overall, but he has contributed as well. And the only ones that got bad marks really were Gomez, but that was caveated with the fact that he's been injured most of the season. Kwanzaa, in terms of he would have expected a lot better, especially after starting the first game, but a lot of that again has been not helped by the fact Konate has been so good. And then I like Endo got a good mark because it's all relative, really. He's come on and seen out games, so I think there's not a bad word you can say about him. And then I really like McAllister, just like 35 million. So I thought that I struggled to give anyone a bad mark, really, but some deserve very good marks.
Which, absolutely, and we can put an end to the cease and desist letter for not giving Mo Salah a 10 now at the same time. Now we've had that explanation, so that is fair enough. This one, I hadn't really put this to you before, but I mean, so many of this side have been brilliant this season. Who do you reckon in this current Liverpool team is? They'll do an end of season team of the year for the Premier League. Yeah. Who's realistically getting in, do you think, as well? I mean, we know Salah, Van Dijk, shoe-ins, give me's contenders for the big awards, but who's actually getting in or got a real chance, do you reckon?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, as you say, Salah and Van Dijk definitely in there. I think you could probably say the same about Gravenberch, just because he's been so good. He's started every game. So that's 3. I would argue that McAllister should be in there, 2. And then you could make a case for Konate as well. And then you look at the likes of the other players around the squad. I can't see Robertson getting in because he's not had his best season. I can't see Diaz or Gakpo getting in just because they've been a bit inconsistent. And you look at the likes of Isak and players around the league that have been brilliant as well. I think there'll be when maybe Alisson could sneak in as well. Actually, I'm not sure. I think there'll be a lot of Forest players in there.
Yeah,
I think maybe Sells, Aina, one of the 2 centre backs for them. I think maybe there'll be a couple of Bournemouth in there. I think they might try and sneak in. I don't know who they'll probably try and get an Arsenal player in, but I don't know if any of them really deserve it. Maybe Rice, but that his main performance has been in Europe. So it's going to be interesting. Maybe I think that they'll get Isak in there. I mean, Chris Wood maybe deserves a shout.
True.
Gibbs White as well, but I think Liverpool should have at least 4, maybe 5 in the team, really. And I think Slot should win Manager of the Season. Obviously, there have been good managerial performances, Nuno and Iraola and Howe, but I would definitely have Slot as my Manager of the Year.
Yeah, it does feel, and I know people will argue different, that's a shoe-in from other clubs. It will be interesting to see how many get in, but fair ratings, I'll give you that one. And the final article, which is, I suppose, 2 bits that we wanted to talk about, it was the Trent article, and obviously on Sunday, all the scenes speaking to John W. Henry and steering in towards this summer. Everyone's looking for something around Trent, aren't they? And reading he's having a chat, Linda putting the eyes on that post and everything like that. Everyone's looking for just give us something that he's staying. But if we're deadly honest, all indications is still to expect to move to Spain this summer, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. All indications that I've got are that nothing's changed. And that Real Madrid are still super confident of getting him. Had a text from someone in Spain this morning, sort of saying they're going to push hard to get him for the Club World Cup, because the fact they've not won the league, they're 4 points behind. They still could win the league, but they're not likely to, and they're out of Europe, and they lost the Copa del Rey final. Someone who lives in Madrid basically said the Club World Cup is like their massive, absolutely massive for them. So they're going to try really hard to get him early. Whether Liverpool sanction that, I don't know. That's a completely different conversation. But I think the piece that I wrote there was basically, how could anyone want to leave by looking at that on Sunday? Trent, loved it. It was maybe a bit awkward at first when he was being pushed over to the cop, but surely that planted a seed of doubt in his head, just the love that he got. But not even that. I think, obviously there's fan favourites in the fan base, and Curtis Jones also a Scouser, and obviously he's loved by the fans. But I think Trent is just a different level to that, because he is the Scouse heartbeat of the team. And he could go on, he could be here for another close to a decade if he stayed, maybe a bit less, but he could go on to be one of the great legends of Liverpool. He's the captain, or the next captain when Virgil leaves. He could be the one that lifts multiple Premier League, multiple Champions League. So he could go on to be a legend. And I think even if you take away the emotion of it, of being a Scouser and going on to be a legend, I still think I'd rather play for Liverpool than Real Madrid right now, because you look at I think Madrid are a horrible club. Really.
Yeah, they are.
They're a horrible club. I do understand the allure of going there and living in Spain and whatever, and playing for the most successful team in Europe's history. But I think Liverpool is the place to be right now, and I think Sunday highlighted that. I think Liverpool will go into next season as the favourites for the title. Whether they can do that or not is a different question, because the other two will get better. And I think they'll go in as one of the favourites for the Champions League too. So I don't think moving to Real necessarily guarantees him instant success. I think obviously he will win trophies there because they're Real Madrid, but I don't think it's quite as clear cut as maybe he thinks. So maybe, just maybe, Sunday planted a seed of doubt in his mind, but all the noise is that nothing's changed. He's still heading for Real, but nothing is signed yet. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, the chat panel shares that expectation. We'll see what happens, or when it happens there. And from this article, I almost feel like it's a Perry Mason style here, and I'm reading a charge sheet. But I just want to read you a line, and I know you'll have had this line obviously quoted to you or put back. But Mail Sport understands that with a big transfer budget this summer, the club is expected to spend big to capitalise on the success. Those are big words, Mr. Lewis Steele, and they'll cause a fanfare in this fan base as well, won't they?
Yeah, I know what I'm doing, but I could have worded that a bit stronger if I wanted to. I nearly wrote the word transfer war chest. but I thought that's just going to get absolutely torn apart on the aggregators. But yeah, it's not necessarily saying Liverpool are going to spend 300, 400 million. It's saying that there is money to spend and they will spend it. They will make signings this summer, and FSG are happy to back Slot. Michael Edwards is going to give him the funds he deserves, but they will still. It does have to be caveated with the fact they will still follow their business model. They're not suddenly going to be going 150 million there, 150 million there.
Yeah.
They will still be doing this in a clever and measured approach. And so, yeah, they won't be signing players for the sake of it, but I think the recruitment team has identified 2 or 3 areas that need to be addressed this summer. I think they did that. Last summer they spent 10 million quid, so the money's there. That's no problem. I think that, as I said last time I was on this show, I do think it'll be a busy summer. I think outgoings will happen, though. They will need to balance the books, but I do think you can expect a big transfer spend this summer, just not maybe, one like it's not going to be like a Chelsea under Abramovich or a City in the early eras of Sheikh Mansour. It's going to be measured, but there is money there and they will spend it.
Yeah, which will be music to everyone's ears, especially in the chat panel by the looks of it as well. And I mean, you mentioned it, and it's well worth a read the article, folks. The specific positions that you talked about, things like left back, centre back, and a forward seem to be which I think fans expect, don't they, really, from what they've seen this year?
Say that again, sorry, you just cut out a second there.
Sorry, the positions wise, sort of left back, centre back, centre forward, those are the positions everyone expects, and you mentioned as well.
Yeah, I do think so. I think I think a striker is definitely top of the priority list. And you can sort of see that from reading between the lines of what Slot said in the last few weeks, because he said a few times, listen, yes, we are winning games, but we're not absolutely hammering teams 3 or 4-0. He often quotes Pep and City in that. He says, in years gone by, City were winning 5-0 every week or whatever, and we're not doing that. And I think that basically signals Slot wants to improve his forward line, and I think we can all see that maybe Jota is not, well, he's not been fully fit, but he's not putting away the goals at the level that we would have wanted him to. True. Núñez, obviously, well documented how poor Núñez has been this season. I think that's fair to say. Diaz has done his bit as a number 9, but I don't think that's his best position. So, yeah, I do think Liverpool target a striker. That's 100% going to happen. And I think they will get one. And then left back, yeah, I think that'll happen definitely as well. Centre half, maybe, if Huijsen comes off. And then, obviously, we know from their pursuit of Zubamendi that they want to bolster the midfield department. And, yeah, maybe a wide forward as well, depending on who leaves. But they will have to sell players, as I say. But I think striker and left back are the definites. And then the others are, let's see what we can do. That old word that us journalists like to say about opportunistic. So yeah, let's see what happens in that.
Look at that. We're hitting all the buzzword bingo today, aren't we? War chest, opportunistic that way as well. And to be fair, you did mention it the last time we talked. The names still seem the same in terms of Huijsen, Kerkez, Ekitike. Those are all the names you almost mentioned that seem to be prominent as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Them ones are the names that do keep coming up, but we're not. But we are still early days in the transfer window, so more will become public knowledge in a few weeks. Because I think one of the things that Richard Hughes is keen to do is respect other clubs. He doesn't want to be seen to be tapping up clients when they've still, maybe fighting for a league or a European spot or whatever they're fighting for at their current club. So I think that's why it's been a bit quieter in terms of those sort of targets. But as we know with Huijsen, he's definitely on the list. They like him. But as I've written a couple of times, Chelsea also like him, so do a couple of other teams. So, but as I'll go back to what I said 5 or 10 minutes ago, if he was watching that on Sunday, he's surely thinking, yeah, I want a bit of that. And the same will go for a number of players this season who have a number of clubs after them. I think they'll look at Liverpool and say, that's the place to be. So I think more names will be coming out in the next few weeks when the seasons have finished.
Yeah, and we look forward to it all because it will fill column inches for you galore, won't it, over the summer coming up? And one final question then, and I suppose as much as we're talking about incomings and the names, probably the biggest concern a lot of people have got right now, and it's linked to Huijsen. You mentioned him, he was in the main stand and we all saw the videos. I mean, I even hoped it was some sort of contract announcement from Ibrahima Konate at one point, but it was just him, from that perspective. Liverpool are trying to get this done. It feels quite big that they get Konate tied down, doesn't it? As much as you can celebrate Huijsen coming in, if that happens, you don't want it to be Huijsen in, Konate out, do you? We've got to get this one done.
Yeah, I do think so. I think Liverpool are trying. Konate was asked about his contract on Sunday, but he sort of shot it down, sort of said, this is a conversation for me and the club to have privately. So as we know, the conversations have started, but they're not reached any advanced stage yet. I don't think there's been much movement in the Konate contract for the last few months, really. So Liverpool clearly want him to stay. So and it's up to Konate really. But again, to keep looping back round to that, he will have loved what he saw on Sunday, and maybe surely he thinks, yeah, I want to stay here and be here for the rest of my career. But yeah, it is early days on Konate, and I think, we've got over a year yet before his contract's expires. So,
Yeah.
But I do think they will want to try and get that one done early because they don't want a repeat of this season where everything is dominated by contract talks. I know it's not quite the same with respect to Konate. He's not the same level as a Salah and a Van Dijk extension, but I think it is still important, especially given how good he's been this season, that Liverpool get that done. But yeah, no massive movement yet, but let's see what happens in the next month or two.
Yeah, fingers crossed with that one. And there we go, ladies and gents. Plenty to talk about there. So Arne Slot and his meticulous nature, well worth a read, that one. Player ratings for the season. If you disagree on that, send all your complaints courtesy to Mr. Lewis Steele. And the summer, we will see what that brings. Players in, hopefully not so many players out for the ones we want to keep, but we will see. It is only April. All it needs me to say, though, as ever, is for the time, the insight, for giving up some time on a Tuesday afternoon. It is much appreciated, Lewis.
Thank you, sir. Enjoyed it.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.